This is Jeff Allen from Skidmark Show, and we're about to take this episode Hollywood style. My guest, Kang from Fast and Furious. You know him as Han. We're about to get him on right now. Dial him up.
Hello.
Is this Sung?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Jeff Allen from Skidmark Show.
Hey.
How are you?
Hey, Jeff. Good to hear your voice.
Hey, thanks.
I feel like I know you because I've seen a lot of your episodes on TV. Big fan.
Well, thank you very much. I feel like I know you too. Sung, welcome on.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm glad to be here.
I am so glad you're on too. I don't even know where to start. You know, obviously, the Fast and Furious franchise was such a big hit. I don't know if you know this from my background, but I've owned 17 cars from that series.
Wow.
What's funny about the whole thing is one of my favorite ones was Tokyo Drift, which is where your character came into the whole deal. Han. Yep. That's where we got first introduced to Han. And, you know, obviously at the end, we know what happened at the end of that episode. And then here we come back a few years later, Fast and Furious 4 starting. I really did not know you were a part of the movie at that point. So I'm sitting in the theater, prime seats, and on the scene, here we go in the big tanker truck, the stealing of the gas tanker trucks. And I got to tell you, when you popped on the scene in that truck, the crowd erupted. They were so stoked to have you back in that show. You know what I mean? So that has to be a big moment for you there. But that was one of the things that, you know, kicked it off for me. I had to have one of those trucks after seeing that and you driving that on the show, you know? And I own 2 of those trucks. Funny.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I had a few of those. But I know that your character got killed off in the series. As we know with all these television and movies, that there's an opportunity for you to come back? I mean, obviously Letty came back.
You never know in the Fast and Furious world. You know, they could go into a timeline situation, you know, pre-Tokyo Drift. You know, what happened to the man after the death? The woman he loves that gave him purpose. You know, it could be kind of a cool dark window into Han's life during that time. So, you know, the Fast and Furious characters are becoming kind of like, you know, Marvel and DC comic characters. So I know that Universal, they have had the conversation about doing spin-offs with the different characters. And, you know, I think it's timely. I think, you know, there's a fan base. And I think you can, you know, push boundaries. I think you can go even dark. You know, imagine a rated R Fast and Furious movie. That'd be cool.
That'd be way cool.
Yeah.
Well, Tokyo Drift was pushing it. I mean, if you think about it, that was the most provocative one of all of them, you know, in my opinion, you know, with the girls, and made me want to see that car lifestyle, you know, like being from over here in the United States. I've never been to Tokyo, always wanted to go, but to see their passion for vehicles is strong or even stronger than ours here in the United States, which is amazing to me.
Gives you a different level of respect on what it means to be a car guy. You know, here we have a very kind of beat on your chest type of, you know, infatuation with our cars, you know, American muscle. There, it's so finite, it's so obsessive in such a, you know, beautiful way. You know, they take something monotonous and they make it beautiful. So understanding, you know, their celebration of a certain car culture, this drifting culture. It's a great place to get that education, you know, because I was kind of ignorant to the whole drifting world until we did that movie.
One of my things I have to ask, because I've wanted to know this since I saw you in Tokyo Drift. Han, as a character, has got to be the coolest cat I've ever seen that continually eats on the big screen. I mean, you're like the James Dean of cool when it comes to eating. You know what I mean? And was that something that you brought to the character? Was it something that Justin Lin did? How did that come about?
Well, you know, Justin really wanted to connect the Han from the Better Luck Tomorrow movie we did together, first film together. And Han is in that film in high school, and he was a chain smoker. And, you know, Fast and Furious being a PG film where young folks will be watching it. You know, I think the idea of influencing cigarette smoking in a big pop culture movie like that, I think that would have been very irresponsible. But creatively, it was cool because, you know, what does an ex-smoker do? You know, he starts to snack and he tries to keep himself busy. So it was just a great fit, and it was also an homage to Brad Pitt and Snatch. You know, it's like, what do you do when you're always observing? You know, what's human nature for us when we're watching things? Because, you know, Han didn't have a lot of dialogue on paper, but he needed to stay active. He needed to be constantly aware. He was the, you know, the puppet master of the situation, the test that Sean was going to go through. So it was kind of fitting where if, you know, Han isn't saying anything, he's still actively doing something by snacking. So it was just a great kind of way of using, you know, the snack to stay active, to create the voice of Han without him having a lot of dialogue. So, you know, it was a great collaboration with, you know, Justin and me and, you know, the studio and the writers involved. So it all worked out.
It worked out well because to me it was like this gangster cool. Like Han was cool under pressure. It didn't matter what the situation was. Didn't matter if he's watching his car get destroyed in the parking garage or if he's about to get in a fight with somebody. It just seemed like it was that kind of that cool, like, you know, like James Dean, that kind of Steve McQueen type of, here I am under pressure. No worries. No worries.
Yeah. And it took a while for me to understand the philosophy of Han, you know, when I played that character for the first time. You know, I didn't understand what it felt like to have money. You know, I didn't understand what, you know, true purpose or value of life was. And I think Han has a wisdom and a zen about him because of the things that he went through. So it was kind of cool to parallel my life with the way that Han sees the world, you know, as a, you know, a character in a film, and then how it paralleled to me. That, you know, it is, you know, the kind of people that are around you, you know, it's a man's word, you know, it's like material doesn't mean anything. Money comes and goes. These things really do have value. And I think maybe that, you know, is part of the DNA that makes Han so beloved, is that, you know, at the end of the day, he's trying to teach something positive, but, you know, he puts the pimp juice on it. You know, he makes it cool. You know?
Yeah. I think you did a great job with that because I feel like there's a lot of you in that character. And I get that from other interviews I've seen and other things that you've done in television and movies. And that's another thing I want to get into is, you know, most people may not realize this, but you're doing about 3 movies a year, either producing or acting. So you're a pretty busy guy.
You know, I've learned to be proactive, and I've learned to stay proactive, and, you know, I have to stay busy. Otherwise I start going crazy, you know. And, it's been a blessing where I could also participate in the car community and, you know, do these type of builds that I get to be a part of, just to keep me sane as well, you know, because Hollywood is the ultimate unknown. But building a car, you know, there's a certain pragmatic approach you can take with it, and it keeps you focused and sane. And also the relationships, they're earned. You know, in a garage, you're going to know quick, you know, who the guy that doesn't want to work, that doesn't want to contribute, who's there for the wrong reasons.
Right.
You know, those guys are sniffed out really quickly. So it's a great, you know, dojo, a great meeting place of similar passions, and just, you know, being able to learn, teach, you know, and just stay positive. So that has been a blessing, you know, to keep me focused in Hollywood, to go, okay, the success in Hollywood, these projects allow me to have an mission to get to be part of these cool builds. So
yeah, that's cool.
It really connected for me, you know. So it's pretty cool.
It's funny you talked about Hollywood, because one of my acting coaches, when I was in going to UCLA, they said, you know, if Jeff, in Hollywood, if you wait around long enough, it'll turn to shit. And it's kind of funny because if you let a car sit around long enough, the same thing happens. So it's always good to be involved and keep things coming and going. One of the things that a lot of our listeners and viewers and fans may not know, but in 2001, you were actually in Pearl Harbor.
Yes, I was.
Yeah. So it talks about how far and what you've gone through with that. Plus, you did Live Free and Die Hard with Bruce Willis.
I did. That was like, you know, meeting your, you know, childhood baseball hero. It's like your Babe Ruth. You know, you get to throw the ball with them. That was pretty cool.
That's got to be cool.
Yeah.
And then you've also done a lot of TV too, like NYPD Blue, CSI. You did Knight Rider and Hawaii Five-0. Yeah, so that just shows the scope of everything that's going on, so that our listeners understand that, you know, it's not, you're just not living off the Han paychecks. You know what I mean? You're getting in there with all the other shows. And
yeah, and also I want to create, you know, I want to be a part of so many different type of things. So, you know, I didn't come to embody one character and be typecast, you know.
Right.
I want to, you know, dive into comedy. I want to dive into, you know, travel shows. I want to dive into Netflix dramas, you know, and feature films. And it's, for me, it's like, you know, that's the reason I'm in Hollywood, and, you know, that's my playground. So you have to stay busy, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Well, it's like I told somebody the other day. They said, you know, when did you know you wanted to be an actor or be involved in television and movies? And I said, when I was a kid, when I figured out really quick everything I wanted to do in life, I couldn't do. You know, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be a race car driver. And I was like, there was that certain moment in high school when I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to pick one. I'm going to have to pick one. Otherwise, I need to be an actor where I can do all of them, you know? And I would read the stories about Tom Cruise going up with the fighter pilots, you know, training for Top Gun. And, you know, you read about these guys that would get immersed in their roles. And I was like, man, that's cool because they get to live it for a while, you know? And it's immortalized on the screen. So getting to my next question here, which is interesting, is how did your acting bug start? Were you just watching TV at 8 and said, I want to be an actor? How did it start?
You know, I grew up in the South. I grew up predominantly in Georgia. And, you know, as a young Asian American boy that wanted to have a voice, that wanted to, you know, have a statement, I needed to be great at something to, have eyes on me. You're almost invisible. What is our voice as a little Asian kid in the South? And, my first, plan was to be a professional baseball player. I said, if I can hit the ball and throw the ball, I can make it and I can have a voice and I can show that, hey man, I'm equal to everybody else out there. And I started watching films and I started seeing my face up there, other role models and other three-dimensional Asian men that redefined what the current stereotype was, and
Right.
I was like, that is something that just spoke to me, Jeff. It's like it's hard to even explain. It's like it's almost seeing that going, dude, everybody watches this, and dudes are wearing Bruce Lee T-shirts to signify signify masculinity. That's like a great contribution,
It
And
sure is.
I said, I want to be part of that, man. I go, I can champion that, and there's somebody, that already kind of paved the road, and I started just studying, other Asian Americans in cinema and Hollywood. I came out, I looked for one of my heroes on screen, Jason Scott Lee, who played the Bruce Lee character in the biopic Dragon.
He sure did. Boy, did he ever. Man,
he was great.
he was
Wasn't he?
he was so awesome. I love that movie. I've probably seen that movie 100 times because
Yeah,
I'm
Rob
a
Cohen.
huge Bruce Lee fan. I have followed all of his work. When you're pitching TV shows and you know how it goes. I pitched my show that ended up finally 8 years after the first time I ever pitched it, made it to reality with me attached. It actually got stolen twice with me not attached. But I had that, I call it the Bruce Lee moment where you're sitting there on your couch at home and you're watching a TV show and you're like, hey, that's my idea. And when that happened to him with Kung Fu, I never realized that growing up. And I watched Kung Fu with David Carradine and I was like, man, I never knew that side of the story. So it was really neat that they shed a lot of light on that in the movie. I thought that was cool.
I came down to LA and I just hunted Jason down, and I found out where he was doing theater, where he was trained. I met his acting teacher, his mentor, East Coast guy, Sal Romeo, Italian dude. We call him Sal, the actor's pal. And he's just old school. He's old method actor studio. Stanislavski, Stella Adler.
Oh yeah.
His first books are Robert Lewis. He breaks it down to a structure, but he keeps it fun and he keeps it raw. And I came out and I just aggressively started doing that. And you do the Hollywood hustle. You try to get your agents, you get in the union, you get your first extra gig, you get your first one-liner, one word, then one line guest star, and you just keep going up. And it's really a true career. It doesn't happen overnight.
Oh no.
It does not.
Yeah, I can't even tell you. I'm right there with you. My first break, I thought it was my first break anyway. I was on ER in 1999 as an extra that got featured because the director loved my facial expressions. So I was an orderly. So it was kind of cool to sit there and, I'm hanging out with these guys on the set and I'm like, hey, that's Goose from Top Gun. Wow. And just to be able to be in that element, I loved that element. I mean, it was a 16-hour day. I'll never forget it as long as I live. My first time on the set of something at Warner Brothers. And I was like, this is incredible. And everybody else was complaining. They were complaining about Crafty. They were complaining about this. And I was eating it up. And I'm like, man, 16 hours, but look what we're doing,
Play pretend.
Yeah. Before we get on to the cars, which is, a big part of the show, I got one more thing for you. If you could go back in time and give yourself advice on becoming an actor, what would it be?
I would say, just enjoy those simple moments when you get to laugh during the process. Enjoy it, smell it, taste it, take pictures of it, put it in an album, because
or
there's
Instagram.
a lot of on your timeline, keep a history of it, because there's a lot of first times, as an actor, as a person that's going to have a career in the film, like your first premiere, your first speaking role, your first series regular, your first movie, your first red carpet, your first. There's so many firsts. So the business is so challenging. Focus on the things that you can control, and a lot of it is in your head, and it's how much fun and how much you enjoy the moment. Because when I was young, I was just sitting there just stressed. It's like, what's next? And I worried about things that I couldn't control, and I lost opportunities to really look at the experience and and drink it in and enjoy it, and fully experience it, instead of worrying about what the result was. So
That's cool.
I tell myself, chill out, homie.
I'd probably go back and slap myself around a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I kicked myself in the nuts. It's just real hard
Yeah,
once. Just run away, push
exactly.
myself to the street. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I would do that. Probably bring a bat.
Yeah.
So, what were you thinking right here, man? Come on now.
Yeah.
Suck it up. All right, now we're moving to cars. Last year at SEMA, you unveiled Fuguzi, which, by the way, is a beautiful, I mean, that is a sick ride. I appreciated all the elements of that. I am a flared fendered guy. When, it comes back to, when I was growing up, my dad had 65 through 67 Corvettes with flared fenders, and they would modify them to put enough tire underneath them to make them hook up and go. And it was one of those things where when I was growing up here, my parents were so heavy into American muscle, like you talked about earlier, that I rebelled. So I read books on Ferrari and Porsche and Lamborghini and how all that started. So I thought it was so cool that you took such an iconic car but gave it a tasteful modification without being really overdone. How did that passion start? You never drove a Datsun before that one, correct?
No, I had really no connection to a Datsun ever. I never owned one. My family never owned one. I came from Cutlass Supremes to Dodge Monacos, so I was not actually had no experience really growing up with Japanese cars. I learned how to drive a stick in a Honda Civic, but I didn't own that car. I didn't understand the history of it. The Fuguzi, I call it the Fuguzi. Fuguzi is a Japanese blowfish. If you don't prepare it, it'll kill you. It's a poisonous blowfish. So just like a track car.
Right.
I thought it was an appropriate name, so I named it the Fugu, and then 240Z, then the Fuguzi, and it has a nice roll to the tongue to it, and
sure
I love,
does.
giving a name to the car. It gives it personality, and so it just started. It was so just simple. There was no complexity to it. It was just two dudes at the gym. My buddy Mike Jen and I were working out. I was teaching them how I developed the gun show because a lot of men admire, my package. And
so, okay. Good to know.
Yes. So giving them a little free training in the gym. And, we were talking about, as you get older, you have kids, it's hard to have an excuse to hang out with the boys once in a while. Just like have a beer, go on a road trip, go to the track, go do something. And he and I were talking about how much we admired people like Magnus Walker, how much we admired, this whole Porsche movement, the whole RWB stuff,
Yeah.
There was this like this revived nostalgia of guys that just went out and did, they're like just the regular guys, you could almost identify with them, and we said, man, it'd be cool to do what Magnus is doing. So we were looking into Porsches, and it just didn't make sense. A buddy of ours, Greg Huang, who has a Porsche repair shop in Pasadena, we contacted him, we hung out, and we talked about this idea of building a track car. And so he's the Porsche guy. We started looking into it, and it felt like we were already trading into oversaturated waters, and there was nothing original, nothing exciting about it. And so Mike came in one day to the gym, and he said, hey, I saw 240Z. Remember those growing up? And I go, yeah, I don't know much about it. We just started doing our homework. And, even the inception of the idea, the leader, the guy who, was behind it, Mr. Katayama, Mr. K, they call him, he was the quintessential Asian American. He brought the idea of an affordable, race car to America that's going to compete with the 911s, the Triumphs, the Jaguars, And, he was an outlier. He was dealing with a lot of circumstances and culture that I could identify with, and I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. This is in essence an Asian American car. I was like, I love it. I love the history. I love this narrative. I want to know more. And then you start seeing the pedigree, Paul Newman being attached to the Z history, my personal history of having those 300Zs in the Fast and Furious movies, and it just felt right. And you look at it, and it almost felt like a underappreciated car as a whole. Subcultures that really embraced that car, but I didn't feel like it was in the common know. I feel like people saw those cars, but they didn't know the details of it. They didn't really appreciate what it really represents, and it didn't have a distinct voice, a distinct name. So the three of us got together. We went on Craigslist. We looked at different cars. We finally found one. We drove it back to Greg's shop. We stripped it, and we were looking for a kit. We started, we're admirers just like you of the wide body. So we're looking at RWBs and these awesome kits by Rocket Bunny that are out these days. And
they're sick.
There was this rendering that Mira-san did, and he never made it. It was just a rendering of a red 240Z, and I sent out a message on my Instagram asking if anybody heard this. And then Grady in Irvine, they contacted me. We had a meeting. Kenji, the president, came down. He shared his history with the 240Z. He had a 1970, and he sold it when he had kids and stuff like that. So he had a personal connection to it, and he thought it would just be a perfect opportunity to collaborate on a build. So we started like that, and then certain goals started coming into place. Like, hey, SEMA is in November. We could, if it's done, we could go in, take it over there. And I had no idea of how to get a car to SEMA. I know it's like the holy mecca for the car guys, right? And
Oh,
I
yeah.
had gone the year before, but as a true spectator, and I saw the density and the beauty of SEMA, and I was like, man, it'd be great to be a part of that. So Kenji and Grady, they presented the opportunity to finish the car and get it over there, and we went there, and it's kind of like having a birthday party for your newborn child, and
Yes.
it was, man.
It was
Seriously.
totally.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
you were right there. I mean, it was incredible, the unveiling
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, and then they put in a beauty pageant that, I won the GT award, and you're like, this was never planned. None of this, the idea of competing doesn't make any sense to me on a car. It's like, it's not a competition, but
I think, it's so many levels it is. I mean, I'm not a car show guy. I always tell people, they'll say, hey, why don't you go to more car shows? And I said, because if I want a car show, I don't want somebody else to tell me what's not cool about my ride. I built it because I liked it. So I've never been into that. And it's funny because, last year I took a car that we built on my TV show to SEMA for the first time too. It's one of those moments. You want that acceptance. You brought a car out. Expectations were, hey, we're going to unveil this. This is cool. It's what I want to do. And then to turn around and win the Gran Turismo award. I mean, hello. Now it's going to be part of a video game. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Is that game out yet, by the way?
No, not yet. They're still working on it. So it's a little behind, but we're friends with people over there, and so we were just over there a couple of weeks ago. So
Oh, were you?
they're working on it. Yeah, hopefully it comes out.
Yeah, a few years back, I met the creator of it. We would get invited to a lot of media events. Well, they had rented one of the Sky Suites over there in the MGM, and they were offering an opportunity for media to come over and play Gran Turismo before it came out. And I don't remember what PS model it was at the time. It was the newest one or whatever. So I get over there, and this gentleman's back there. He didn't speak very much English at all. And there was two other guys there, and they're like, okay, we'd like for you to sit down and play the game and then give us your feedback. And I'm like, all right, this is awesome. And I mean, the graphics were beautiful. The roads, they put me in some road in Japan that was all curvy, and it was awesome. So they set the game up, and here I am rocking through this game, and I got down to the end of it, and they said, what did you think? And I go, it was awesome except for one thing. And they go, what's that? And I go, if you hit a guardrail, it doesn't scratch the car. I'm like one of those realists. I like the real video games, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, we can't do that. The manufacturers won't let us, damage the cars. And this is a few years ago. Now they actually do have you can set the damage level on your car and everything on the game. But it was just kind of funny because I was like, I love it. The graphics, everything feels so real, except for if you go off, your car is still perfect. That's got to be kind of cool, though, to see the Fuguzi immortalized now. I mean, the games for years to come. You know what I mean? To just say that happened. That's incredible. Yeah. So let's move on. Now we're fast forwarding now almost to another year. We're coming up on SEMA, and you announced that you were doing a new build. It's called the Underdog.
Yes. It is a 1972 Ford Maverick. I drove a Maverick in Fast 5, and that's when Dennis McCarthy, that is the picture car specialist for the Fast movies. He taught me the history of the car, and it's Brazil's beloved muscle car.
It is.
They take pride in it. They take ownership on that car. And when I drove it, I was like, yeah, man, if I were a car, I'd be this dude. I'm this car.
You'd be the Maverick.
I feel like an underdog car. This is the ultimate underdog car. Like, people don't know what to make of you. Are you a Pinto? Are you a Mustang? What are you, man? Like, what's your deal? Yeah. Really? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
I said, one day, I'd like to do something with this. And the opportunity came last year at SEMA after the Fuguzi. I met with Pennzoil and Shell, and we had a great conversation about similar views and similar goals in our life. And I shared with them the idea of doing something with the younger generation, sharing this kind of amazing ride that I get to be a part of, building a car, coming to SEMA, meeting all these cool people, meeting people that I watch on TV and look up to and learn from and I admire. And I look at that and I go, dude, it's a little selfish if I come back just for myself and my buddies. I go, this is something that I need to pay forward. This is something that, SEMA is the mecca for car guys, and this is an opportunity not to just be a audience member and just be a basic, a person that attended, but they get to be part of the whole experience. They get to inspire.
Yeah.
And these young men that we have on this project, they're 3 high school students from Alhambra. They come from diverse backgrounds, but they all share this similar passion for cars. It's unique in their own way, but at that age, you can't really fake it. It's in their eyes.
No, totally.
Yeah, and that's how we pick them. We have a crew that follows them around to share their stories and their trials and tribulations of being a teenager in America, and also inspiring, how they still, pursue their passion, and that revolves around cars. And it's just fun, and it's also cool to be able to give these kids like a great summer, and it gives us, adults a reason to get together and go on field trips. When you get to go to, Gran Turismo, when you get to go to Hot Wheels, when you get to, go to the SEMA garage open house yesterday. We're going to a banquet for the SEMA Hall of Fame tonight. The guys get to dress up. It's their first suits.
That's
it's
cool.
A lot of first times.
Yeah.
And we get to be part of that, story, their story for this summer, and also introduce and to share stories and inspired by introducing them to people that came from similar backgrounds with similar dreams, and just connect with people that can help them achieve their dreams. And it happens to be around cars, and that's something, it's easy to champion, it's easy to stand behind. So that's, in short, that's what the project is about. We're building it at the SEMA garage in Diamond Bar. We have Mike Spagnola over at SEMA, who
the vice president. Great guy.
He's just a wonderful guy who has been mentoring me in how to do these high school programs, because he's been doing this for years. Without him, you just don't jump into a public school system. It doesn't work like that. There has to be a level of trust and respect, and there's a process, because our goal is not a one-off. We hope that this inspires others to do it across the nation. There's always this debate about the younger generation not being able to wrench and not being able to experience the true essence of being under the hood, because just the technology has changed. But with our underdog project, we can actually demystify a lot of these rumors, because we're working with I think the engine of today's generation, the 2.3 EcoBoost turbo from the Ford Mustang.
Right.
And, we're mixing it with this classic underrepresented muscle car that if all Americans hate it, it doesn't matter, because we still have Brazil, Jeff. So
hey, the Brazilians love me. They keep emailing me and want me to come down, and I'm like, I might want to move there, and never come back, because they're just such loving people. It's amazing. It's funny, because before we continue with this, because you've got a big thing that you're unveiling here, and I want to get to the punchline, but real quick, I want to touch on this. I always talk about 6 degrees of separation for people that are asking me, well, how'd you get started? How'd you get your show? How did you start in the car business? And I always say, don't you know everybody's related to Kevin Bacon? Come on, it's 6 degrees of separation. Well, the funny thing is you bringing up this Maverick. Years ago, I'm driving row after row of parts rows at Pomona on Saturday night in my truck with my father-in-law and a flashlight, and that's what we used to do for fun. Is we would go out there. We usually get there about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and we would cruise the rows, and I'd buy cars and parts before Pomona opened the next morning at 5 a.m. And we happened to pass by this row, and there was a little white 1971 Maverick sitting over there. And as I passed by, Jim, my father-in-law, goes, "Hey, here, I really like Mavericks. When I was growing up, that was kind of a cool car. It was a little misunderstood, but you could shove a V8 in there and put yourself 4-speed, and you had kind of a hot rod." This car had like the chrome bumpers. It had some really cool slotted mags, real period correct looking, in the early 70s. So, but all these times I've been out with my father-in-law, I'd bought countless cars because I'm a car addict. He had never bought a car. We always talked about it. I want this Maverick. And so as we're cruising by the road, I said, let's go over, let's see what they want for it. So we drive by, and the price on the windshield at the time said $2,000 for best offer, $2,400 for best offer. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, it's probably a 6-cylinder. I want a V8. And I'm like, okay, well, you're starting to draw a box. You're starting to close yourself in on stuff. So I circled around the other side, and I jumped out, and I opened the hood, and under the hood was a 302 Ford motor. And I go, bingo. V8. And he goes, yeah, but probably an automatic. And I go, okay, all right. This box is getting narrow and narrow. I'm never going to get this guy to buy a car. So I go over, and sure enough, I see that it's a handshaker. I see the clutch pedal, everything. I go, hey, it's a stick. I said, get out. We're making a deal. Anyway, I pushed him, twisted his arm. Finally, he buys this car for $1,100. And he takes it home, and he has the most fun with this $1,100 car, fixing little tinkering things. And he's a Porsche guy. So here we are. We have this Maverick. Well, a few years goes by, and he tinkers, and he's fixed a bunch of stuff on this car and made it a really nice, streetable Maverick. But it's still just a Maverick. You know what I mean? And so a buddy of mine says, hey, Dennis is, McCarthy. He's looking for 70s Mavericks for, one of the Fast series. And I go, you're kidding me. So I tell my father-in-law about it, and he goes, well, I don't know. I don't know if I really want to sell or whatever. I said, look, they're going to be at Pomona this weekend. The buyers will. I guarantee you. Just go down there, put a price on it. I said, if they talk with an accent and they're Kiwis, then it's definitely going to that movie. Sure enough, he takes his car to Pomona. It sells. It's one of your cars from Fast Five.
Is?
Yes.
It is?
Yeah, it was my father-in-law's car.
Holy moly. Did it look like that? Was it black?
No, they painted it all. They made it distressed. His car was white, but, they took...
It was a grabber? Had a grabber hood on it?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that funny? That's what I talk about, just a small world. Wow. And I talk about that 1 degree of separation. You know what I mean?
Was it a matching numbers 302?
No.
Ordered from?
No. That's why they wanted it. Usually I follow that, but with the Maverick, Fast Five was, I never got any cars out of Fast Five.
Oh.
It was one of those ones I just kind of missed the boat on. Fast Six, I have the Lucra from Fast Six that they had, the green and yellow car that didn't do too much in the show, but should have.
I have a picture with that car.
You do? I know.
Yeah, on the bridge. I'm leaning against it. I was in Tenerife, Spain. That was cool.
Yeah, they're cool cars. But anyway, getting back to that. So the whole Maverick story, so that's what I was talking about. It's just so funny how close everything's connected. And especially in the car world, you think it's huge. You really do. And when you go to SEMA, it's kind of overwhelming. And I can't wait for these kids to experience that for the first time. Because like you said, it's like, I always tell people, enjoy the journey. They say any words of advice. I'm like, enjoy the journey, man. Don't take any day for granted, And so for them to go experience this, but they'll learn really quick that it's a tight network. And the more people you meet and you find out how small this world really is. Yeah. So the Maverick's in the process now. I know she just got a grill the other day that looked pretty special there.
From Brazil, from this gentleman named Sid from Brazil. He reached out on my Facebook and asked me. He sent pictures of his car. He does these custom grills, and he's just a Maverick fan, man. And he's an enthusiast. So he asked if he could donate some of those things. So he donated this custom grill that he made for us, and then it's a pattern I think he's used before on one of his cars. But he had it made for us, and then he found us 1977 Maverick headlights that were only in the Brazilian manufactured Mavericks at the time. They kind of look like these Mach 1 kind of taillights, and they're bigger. Because the other, the Maverick came with pinto taillights. So these kind of give it a little extra Brazilian flavor to it. So
that's cool.
It's pretty sweet, man, because people from all over the world, we've got, manuals, through social media today, there's this community out there that wants to support this build, Jeff. It's another great experience, it's another community build, and it's cool that these kids get to be a part of this journey and be benefactors from all the community coming together. So it's pretty cool, man.
That's way cool. It's way cool. Yeah. So we're gonna unveil it at SEMA, and where are we doing that?
It's gonna be in the Pennzoil booth in the main. It's gonna Pennzoil has a massive presence at SEMA this year. I know that we have like a stage up there, and you're gonna be there, right?
I'm hosting the live stage, for my second year. Yeah, I missed you last year. I was actually signing autographs, and then I come back, and Alan Taylor had interviewed you, right? And I was like, and then he had asked you the question about what are you going to do in the next Fast movie, and you're like, Alan, I died. You know what I mean? And I was like, where was I? I cannot believe I left song alone with Alan. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Okay. So yeah, so that's going to be.
I loved you in that movie, Rush Hour.
Oh man, and it was funny because I saw you the year before at SEMA because you were walking around with your guys that helped you with the build. When you're making appearances at SEMA, it always seems, at least for me, that they book me at opposite ends of Seamless.
Yeah.
So I've got like between a quarter mile to a half mile walk, and I've only got like 15 minutes to get there. So I got to get my exercise in. And we passed by you, and I said, wait a minute, that's him. And everybody's like, no, Jeff, sorry, you can't go back and talk to him right now. We've got to go. We're running late. And I'm like, oh, I know that's him. What's he doing? You know, because I was like, oh, he's doing something special here. It was really cool to see you there. And it was really cool to see the progress that's being made on the Maverick. Now, what are the plans for the Maverick after the unveiling?
We plan to auction it off, hopefully at Barrett-Jack's in Las Vegas in October. And,
Oh, sweet.
yeah, and the proceeds will go to supporting continued education for the three kids that are part of it, the three young men. And if they want to go to college, university, they want to go to a trade school, we have schools like UTI supporting us, and they're just opportunities. So I know a lot of times, sometimes goals and dreams are kind of put on hold because
there's money involved.
Yeah, there's money. It's just life. It's what it is. And if the community can get together and alleviate that, I think it's a fair trade. It's not a charity, man. It's like we get to be part of building a cool ass car.
Yes.
Whoever buys it, they get an awesome buy. They just get a great piece of car history, in my opinion. So it's fair, and then at the end of it, you get to support some dreams. Send some kids off to college and watch their passion prosper and grow, and hopefully they can give it back too, once they're successful.
So you said October, not this October, the following year.
2017 October.
Okay,
we're thinking like Las Vegas, Barrett-Jackson, if it all works out.
Okay, because we're going to be at this Las Vegas Barrett-Jackson coming up in October, so that's why I was curious. I didn't know if you were going to sell the car and say, wait a minute, it's got to go to SEMA and be unveiled, and then you can take delivery. But no.
Well, you could pre-sale it there for us. I'll give you a commission, Jeff.
Oh, I like that. I wouldn't take it. I would just give it to one of the kids, man, because I think it's such a cool cause. And like you talked about paying it forward, and I've done that before with meals in the drive-thru, and here you are doing it for these guys, which is going to set them up for better situations down the road. And it's so cool because you are giving back. You're part of something that became epic. When the first Fast and Furious movie came out, I got to see it 6 months before it was shown to the public. I went to a private screening, and because I was in the car business, I was actually working for Mitsubishi at the time. I left that movie and I was like, I laughed through some of it. Some of it I thought was really cool, but I had no idea at that point in time what a huge following it was going to create. When I grew up, it was Smokey and the Bandit movies. It was, the Dukes of Hazzard on television. And then for me, my passion was the Gumball Rally movies and the Cannonball Runs with Burt Reynolds and Jackie Chan and, Roger Moore and all these great people that you'd seen on the silver screen. And they're all surrounding these cars. So to me, it was kind of cool to be a part of such a big deal now. That franchise is going to surpass pretty much any car franchise that's ever been done.
Yeah.
It may have already. I don't know if anybody's ever gone past 8.
Car franchise, no. That's
No.
probably it.
Yeah. So it's cool to be a part of that. It's cool to give back to that community. Now, your first car, because you talked about some interesting cars in the beginning of this conversation. What was your first ride?
I thought it was a 83 Dodge Monaco, but I realized it was a 77 Dodge Monaco. Big 4-door tub. It was like just ugly, light blue. Faded and white interior, and that was the car that was given to me. It was it was in the family. It was just ugly. There's no way to make that one cool. There was nothing I could do. Nothing. No. Even if you went rat rod, it wouldn't be a rat. It'd be like a beaver rod.
You could start something new there. We could start a whole new
rod.
Yeah. What are you driving? A beaver rod? It's not even cool enough to be a rat rod. We're gonna call it a beaver rod.
Yeah. So I didn't have anything cool. It wasn't. I think that's why I have such an appreciation for so many cars, because I wasn't able to really afford, to buy the dream cars until much later in my life, until I started making money as an actor. So I think that appreciation and that infatuation, it's like I'm in awe. I see cars and I'm like a kid going, holy moly, look at this, So
yeah.
And I think it served, but then that Dodge Monaco didn't help my game with the ladies.
Fast forward though, how long until you got the first 911?
It was actually about 3 years ago. I bought my first 911. I bought a used 997S.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and it was just like a perfect blend. It's like it wasn't as loose as like a 996, but it had the 993 history, and you still got to appreciate what the legacy of a older 911. DNA was about, and
Right.
it was a great starter car for me, and that's where I learned the appreciation. I met a lot of friends. That's where I studied up on, people like Magnus to go, wow, there's a whole community.
Oh
I wasn't a
man.
Porsche guy growing up. I was around Impalas and Monacos and so,
Beaver rods.
yeah,
Yeah.
Beaver Ride.
Yeah.
So it was new. It was all new. And then you see those videos by Petrolicious and E-Garage, and you're going, dude, these guys are like modern day James Deans. I'm like, yo, this is sweet. How do you do that? I just saw myself as this kid from the South. I don't see myself as like the Han character. It's like I'm an actor, and then you see the real deal, and you're like, yo, these guys live and breathe cars. This is
Yeah.
who they are. It's their essence. It's pretty awe-inspiring. Like I don't claim to compete with those guys in any manner. These in the car community, you have living legends and caricatures.
Mm-hmm.
They're almost like John Wayne characters. Some of them. If you want to go and learn a certain unique walk, you go to a car meet, and it's like dudes that have like a hybrid of John Wayne, and it's like that James Dean walk. You can go and study cool. So
When you're talking about that, all of them, it's kind of cool because separate, they all have a different vibe.
Yeah.
Like when you go to a lowrider meet, those guys, their attention to detail and some of the things that they come up with and their swagger, and then you go to like a rat rod, hot rod deal, and the guys are like a flashback to the 50s, and then you got your muscle car guys and your import guys. But what I think is cool is, for years when I was growing up as a kid, it was like you're either Ford or Chevy, and they all hated each other, it seemed, But nowadays, it's like that community has grown together, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you drive and how cool it is, or if it's a work in progress. It's that you're into that company. And I think that's cool, and I'm glad to see that advance. It's not so much of the hatred towards you're a Mopar guy, you're an import guy, you drive a rice burner, and it's like when I was growing up, I loved all that stuff. I loved anything that was different. And sometimes people go, well, I can't believe you bought that car. It's funny because in Dallas here, I'm getting ready to paint my building, and the painters came over yesterday, and the mailman actually broke down in front of my shop, and so his mail truck was here, and it's an old dilapidated mail truck. The paint's kind of faded on it, because it's probably been in service for 20 years. And the painters just assumed I bought it and was going to do something with it because all the strange stuff I have at the shop. And I just thought it was funny because I was like, no, I didn't buy that. But, I might one day buy a mail truck and turn it into a hot rod. Be kind of cool. Now, after the Maverick in Tokyo Drift, you were driving an RX-7.
Yeah. Any
Any plans for the future for an RX-7 build?
That's there's something. I have a prejudice of the FD, man. I had a 93, so I know that car, and I feel like I've tapped out the experience on it. Like I don't have.
You've been there, done that?
Yeah, so I go. It's too on the head with the Han thing. I'm going.
Yeah.
Well, people expect me to paint it black and orange. And
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And I like cars that people would never think that I would ever do.
Right.
The Maverick was so kind of outside of everyone's idea of what I would do next. People might have just assumed if I were gonna be part of a car, it'd be like a GTR or something. And I have an idea of what I want to do. But I think the car really needs to represent what the project is about and what the ethos is and why we're doing it. And if it's not in parallel with something that's actually bigger than the car. I don't have right now like a strong connection or nostalgia to a particular vehicle to go, yeah, that's it. That's the one,
Gotcha.
So,
now, can you give our listeners that, because obviously it's an audio podcast and not visual, and I want you to let them know where they can go to follow this journey on the Underdog, because I think it's a great story. Yeah. I think it's a great message. And I also want you to give us a visual idea of the finished product, what we're going to see.
So the project Underdog has a video series that people can watch on my personal Facebook at Kang Official. And if there's a blue check mark, that means that's me. And you'll see the trailer there, and you'll see the upcoming episodes there. And then we also have YouTube videos at the Garage Monkey channel, and that'll be showing there. And a verbal visual for the people who have seen the Fuguzi, which is white and a fender kit on it, and it's very clean. There's no livery on it. It's very simple, but the statements are in its curves. I think the Maverick would be it'd be a cousin to the Fuguzi. It's gonna be white. It's gonna have the Can-Am kind of style to it. It'll have.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it'll have. I think for the people that are aware of that series, or seen pictures of cars from that era, it'll be something that they're a little familiar with. It won't be so like, what? Why are there big fenders on a Maverick? And Mira from Japan, from Rocket Bunny, he's going to be doing the fender kit for us, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, so it's a hybrid. So you have Mira from Rocket Bunny who did the kit for the Fuguzi, who's going to do it for the Maverick, the Underdog. So there's going to be somewhat of similarities to it to a degree.
Right.
Similar flavors. And then we have I would say the heart of the car is one of the most interesting stories is that we're putting a 2.3 4-cylinder EcoBoost in there, and it's coming from a 2015 Mustang. They're sending us the front clip, and we're installing it into the car, and it came with an inline six. We dynoed it. It had about 76 horsepower, and stock that the EcoBoost is 310 with 320 torque, and that's before we even started messing with the turbos. So I think that's more than enough. And that engine, it's not a statement within itself. It's an arrival of the engine of today's generation.
Yeah.
And that's where Ford's support is been really amazing. That they saw a project that kind of paralleled with the things that they want to do within the younger generation. And this engine is in a way to represent like getting back under the hood and just gearing. And hopefully this project influences other guys to just get out there and just start mentoring, pass that knowledge off. Just do a build, get one for $1,000, just get in the garage, do it.
Yeah, it's a good message. I think it's a good message to anybody out there in the car community. You brought up a good point there too, because I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, I don't have the money. How did you get started? And I said, guys, I started in my garage with one car at a time. I had a day job. I was running dealerships during the day and I was building cars at night, and it was more of a passion thing for me. And then it grew and it just kept growing and growing and growing until it grew into a business. So, but you got to start one at a time.
And if you have the passion, dude, you're lucky because you're a step ahead of everybody, because you're going to be there, the first one there and the last one to leave, and it's not going to be work. It's fun.
Yeah.
Right. So
totally.
Yeah, I think that's the lesson for these young men too, is that if it's not in your bones to do this for a career, you're gonna be unhappy, man. But the opportunity for the dudes that in their hearts of hearts is they just want to be around cars all day, man. This type of program is like a dream come true.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. It's what you're going to start. You're going to start this Underdog program, and it's just going to keep building from there.
I hope so.
I think so.
Jeff, I hope we can do a project together.
Buddy, I'm ready. You tell me what. Let's do it. I'm down.
That'd be great.
Just to recap with everybody, you're going to unveil it at SEMA in the Pennzoil Shell Lubricants booth. That's going to be exciting. We're going to have everybody there, a part of that. So you guys can watch for that on there. You can go to his Facebook. Obviously, look for the blue check so that you're looking at the official one to follow this build. What's next for you?
Well, I have some projects in development right now, and I have a dream project about baseball. It's a baseball comedy.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. I can't wait to dive into that character. It's been a dream of mine to play in a comedy and, with the baseball character, I think. I'm going to have a blast.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've had Seung Kang on the show. Thank you so much for being on. I can't wait to see you at SEMA. I can't wait to see the unveiling of this car. I think it's going to be very epic.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks again to Seung for taking almost an entire hour out of his schedule just to speak with Skidmark Show. We really appreciate it. If you were paying attention, then you heard he is going to be auctioning off the car that they're building with the Underdog Foundation.